Good morning. Today we look at Exodus 36, 37, and 38. And Moses has been getting these instructions from God concerning the tabernacle, concerning the people that would build and work on the tabernacle and the skills that they would have and donations from the Israelites that would come in forms of gold and silver and bronze and all of the different fabrics and the materials that would be needed to construct the temple as God had commanded, and the wood and and everything. And so the first verse of chapter 36 is kind of seems like the finish up of God speaking to Moses. Um, that with all that the Lord has commanded, that verse ends, with all the people, the men with the skills and stuff. And then verse 2 is Moses then called these two men that God had mentioned, and the ones that the Lord had given skill, and everyone's heart was stirred to come and do the work. And they brought to Moses their free will offerings. And I think about, when we get into um, the end of chapter 38, what we read today, it talks about the amount of gold, the amount of silver, and the amount of bronze, and some of the materials. There was like 70 talents of gold, 29 talents of gold and 730 shekels, and the silver was, 100 talents. I mean, and this is a lot of gold, a lot of silver. And you wonder, well, where did these slaves get that money? Well, when after the 10th plague had come and gone, and the Egyptians were, telling the Israelites to get out of here, God had commanded, the Israelites to take from the Egyptians, and they did. They plundered, and not only that, but the Egyptians gave them, gold and silver, bronze. They gave them all of this stuff to get rid of them. They were tired of the plagues and everything. So, they'd been traveling with all of this, and I think about, like the weight of, gold. Is heavy, silver is heavy, these and bronze, there's some weight to this stuff that they're carrying. And as we, reading through chapter 36 and 37, the construction of the tabernacle comes into being, and the height of the acacia wood and the breadth of it, and the curtains, some of the curtains were what was it, 24 cubits high or something, like 40 cubits high. And I think, well, what do they need to be that tall for? It doesn't seem to be in my head as I look at it that the walls are that tall. The length is this and the width is this, so that they're fastening them all together. But maybe the length, started at the middle of the top and came over. I can't quite picture it all in my head to get it to work out. But the enormous wealth that the Israelites had taken with them out of Egypt. And verse 3, the last half, they still kept bringing him free will offerings every morning, so that the artisans who were doing every sort of task came, each from the task being informed, and said to Moses, the people are bringing more than enough for the work to be done that the Lord has commanded. So Moses then commands the people, stop bringing, we have enough. And I think about that, when we're planning to build or to add on or to do some um, improvements in our churches and in our facilities today. That's one of the concerns we always have is, well, where are we going to get the finances? Do we have it? Can we do this? And can we approach the people of the congregation? And so it's always, the financial part of it is always a concern. And for these Israelites, they, in a way, it seems that they were kind of starting to figure out, hey, we are free people. God has chosen us. We're going to do what God has said. And they come and they freely give of what they have. And so for the building of the tabernacle, and they're seeing the abilities of these skillful workers, and it isn't just these two names, the two that are named that are doing the work, but there's an awful lot of other workers that some of them are sewing the curtains and making them, and some are forming the the brass rings and the silver rings, and doing all of the work to getting everything so that it's ready for the completion of this temple. And verse 8 says, all of those with skill among the workers made the tabernacle with 10 curtains, and they, so all of them with skill. And, so what were the other ones doing? Well, they were contributing, they were helping. I mean, they were feeding and cooking. I mean, it's a community. That's the way we come together. That's community as well. But, that's like verse 10 again of chapter 36. He joined the 5 curtains to one another, and with 5 curtains, and he made loops of the blue, and so it was all, God-given talents. And I think about that too in today's society. I mean, people try to figure, oh, what do I want to do with my life when we're growing up, and we get to high school, and it's, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to be, and it's, where am I going to go to school? What am I going to learn? And, the reality is that sometimes, for some people, as they're going through their schooling, they discover what it is that they really enjoy. And for others, it takes, a few years of doing this and doing that and coming into what they are. But, I think about all of the different professions we have in our world today. We've got painters, we've got plumbers, we've got electricians, we've got pilots, we've got bulldozer operators. There's just no end to the numbers of jobs and professions that are available for us out there. And there are some of them that we have too many people for, and there are many of them that we don't have nearly enough for as well. But yet, we all have talents, skills, and it's, trying to figure out, which one of it, which skill, which talent is it that I want to develop and to use. But, God had given these talents to these people, and we also have those talents that are given to us. So reading on, chapter 37 begins with Bezalel, made the ark of acacia wood, and so he's making the inner furnishings, the ark of the covenant. He's going to make the altar and make those things out of the wood, and then then they get covered with bronze, and the enormity of the task that they have before them. And I kind of remember as a kid watching the new Our Savior's Lutheran being built in McHenry, and other buildings I've seen go up too. But then back it was in the early '60s that the new church was built, and the basement was dug and poured and formed, the walls were put up, and then we were putting the rafters up. I mean, and I've got a little advantage because my dad took some 8mm movies of that to watch just how these men were coming together and putting those rafters up there, for the roof on that building. And for a 7-8-year-old kid to be watching that, it was pretty amazing to see the skills and the abilities that these people had. I mean, there were professional carpenters working, but there were also a lot of others, helping that weren't so professional in what they were doing. But, the skills that came together to do the building, and different people with different skills. And I think about that today as well with, somebody does this is who they are. But then you find out, well, they've got this, I mean, they can do calligraphy, or they can do this or that, or they're, they've got hidden talents. And this is one of the things that, God kind of gives us those hidden talents and encourages us to use them. Chapter 38 again just continues the building, the construction. He made the altar for the burnt offerings of acacia wood, and this and that. And verse 9, he made the court for the south side of the hangings, so they're getting everything up and ready. And then starting in verse 24 of chapter 38 is where we get the amounts of the gold and the silver and some of that. And it's just really kind of mind-boggling what they had and what they gave for the construction of the tabernacle. And Verse 29, the bronze that was contributed was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels, and with it they made the bases for the entrance, the bronze altar, and then, very specific in how much and how it was used, all according to God's plan.